Hi, I'm Monica Packer from About Progress, and this is a growth spurt, a bite sized way you can increase your progress today. Today, I had a light bulb moment with a coaching client who's given me permission to talk about what we talked about in a bit more of a vague way and a way where you can also apply it to yourself. And it's about why women don't end up taking time for themselves. I think so much of the advice that we see out there for women to put themselves on the list is well intentioned. It's about how you simply need to make an appointment with yourself and keep it, that you need to carve out that time, that how we choose to use our time is a choice. And it's communicated in a way where it's almost our fault when we don't inevitably take time for ourselves, whether that time is used for self care or for hobbies or to relax, to rest, whatever it may be. Somehow, this well intentioned advice comes back to us just blaming ourselves for not taking it. So, what I wanted to do was to validate two big reasons why women don't, and how it actually all comes down to one big reason. And there's many, many more reasons, but this is for the woman who knows she's worth the time, who carves it out, who puts it on a calendar, who wants to keep the appointment for herself, who knows she's worth the time and the investment of time and energy and sometimes even money, but she still struggles to do it. These are two reasons why. The first is because it takes literal work to do so. To step away from the responsibilities requires us often to ask for it, meaning we can't just step away because someone else will need to step up. And that someone else is often a family member, whether it's a partner, a spouse, children, or maybe we have to hire a babysitter or ask another family member to step in, especially when it comes to childcare and other home responsibilities. So inevitably, like we can carve out the time on our calendar, but doing so requires that other people also carve out time and step up to the plate. And that is a hurdle. That is an obstacle. It takes time and energy. And for that reason alone, it makes it seem like, what's the point? What's the point in taking time for myself when it requires more work to do that? What's the point in taking time to rest when it requires work for me to rest? And when we see that, it's one of those light bulb moments, like I said, we had with this client where it's like, well, no wonder why you know what's good for you, but you don't do it because it still takes effort. It takes energy, it takes conversation, it takes work. So that's one big reason. Carving out time requires work ahead of that time. And the next one is one in particular that this client pointed out. She described the dread that she feels when she is out of the house and trying to take care of herself and to prioritize her own interests. The dread she feels in that very moment of taking care of herself because she knows what she will come home to. And the way I worded it for her that felt like a yes for both of us is when she gets home, she pays the price for her time away because things are left undone, whether it's the dishes or the laundry or other tasks that weren't completed. She literally has to pick up those pieces when she gets home. And oftentimes that labor can be mental and emotional as well. And that back end is one I don't feel like we talk about very often or notice. The way she painted that picture of the dread we experience while we are in the moment trying to take a moment for ourselves is one I think every woman can raise her hand to relate to. So yeah, we knew about the before, but what about the after? That's the second big reason to me why women choose to forego stepping away from their responsibilities because they pay the price for doing that. When they come back, the responsibilities are still there for them. So this is depressing, to say lightly and jokingly. It is hard to notice this because it puts us in the same perpetual cycle of noticing and needing that time for ourselves, but then being in that pickle of which one, if not both, of these reasons is going to come back to bite me and either prevent me from taking the time that I know and I can validate that I need, and or come back to me before and after where I'm still paying the price for taking that time. Both of those two reasons come back to one big one, and that's invisible labor. I've talked about this so often the past few years, but it's worth revisiting. Invisible labor is the care work of time, energy, mental load that is required to maintain homes, families, and even workplaces. And this labor is very often unseen, undervalued, and unpaid. And the high majority of people who carry this labor are women. And that is science and research back across the entire world, from our Western world to everywhere else in the world and third world countries. It's even worse. Okay. And a more modern way to say this is the disparity of labor at home. That is a big undercurrent. I think as women, we can make a lot of progress internally in honoring our needs and our wants, of validating them and knowing that we need them, and making steps to make changes for ourselves. But we will hit a plateau with our personal development and our own fulfillment if this practical but still deep need of better sharing invisible labor, noticing it, making it visible, sharing it, is not done. We will hit a plateau. And this is so tricky to talk about, and it requires a lot more time and energy to get into, and to get on the practical end of it. But I just wanted to validate how those two big reasons are often why we see women think it's just easier not to, because literally it may be easier. But the ultimate price is deeper and harder and longer lasting and more harmful. And that's women not being themselves. And that is harmful for them, and it's harmful for their loved ones. And if we want women to be awake and embodied and doing good in their lives and to be fulfilled and to be sharing their gifts with the world and making the world a better place, it keeps coming back to this. We have to better see what they do and share in the work that they do. And that comes back to invisible labor. So the solutions to this, a lot more to say on that, a lot deeper work to be done. But what I wanted to begin with this growth spurt, although it doesn't feel very motivating, is a validation for you. And maybe a light bulb moment for you too. If it often feels easier to not, maybe it's those two reasons. Because it takes work before and you pay the price after. If that is like a yes and yes for you, that's why. So it's not down to you not knowing better. It's because in experience, this is true for you, that it does seem harder in the moments. So what do we do about this? I think we have to start with validating. We have to start by seeing it, because then we have more of a why to do the deeper work in our families of helping everybody see what it takes to maintain a household, what it requires to raise a family, to keep the toilet paper stocked, to keep food in the fridge and cleaning products stocked underneath the sink, what it takes to have the dryer lint cleaned out, and how a light far out of reach actually needs to be dusted if we're not all going to have terrible indoor allergies. We need to do more work, and that is hard, and it requires us being the change maker. And that's where I want to direct you to two big episodes. One is an episode with Eve Rotsky, who wrote Fair Play, fantastic book. I highly recommend it. I did an interview with her, so I'll link to that. And another interview is about being a change maker that I aired with Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife earlier this year. I'll also link to that. So this is kind of episode where I'm like, there's more to say, there's more to do, but I want to begin with leveling with you feeling validated, that it's not just a you problem, that it's not because you don't have enough self-discipline or energy, or that you're not smart enough or hardworking enough to make this happen for yourself. There are genuine reasons why it can feel quote unquote easier to not. And those are two big ones, which are actually more about one big one. And in hearing this and then starting with the validation, I hope it can empower you to do some of this bigger long-term work with your households to raise awareness and to better share this labor so that you can be released to fly more, to not have to pay the price before and after for prioritizing yourself more. So again, more to say, but let's start with validation. Before I go today, I want to spotlight a progressor. And who I want to spotlight is actually a huge group. I want to spotlight the people who took part in the More for Moms conference, those who all rose their hands and participated, and hearing back from you about what it changed for you, how it enlightened you, how it gave you practical steps to move forward was so wonderful to hear. So thank you for doing so. It is still available now as a self-paced course, and all my listeners will get $20 off by using the code LISTENER at checkout. So you can go do that at aboutprogress.com/moreformoms. But again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the women who rose their hands and participated. It was a wonderful, deep, and exhaustive work, but one I'm really proud of and happy that you got to take part. That's it for today's Growth Spurt. Thank you for listening. Now go and do something with what you learned today.